Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar on job costing in QuickBooks Online Advanced. We're so happy that you're here today for our webinar co-presented by Out of the Box Technology, ECI, and DAPT. To introduce our presenters today, we have Lisa McCarthy, who's the COO and founding partner here at Out of the Box Technology. We have Bob Kane, who's a business unit leader for ECI, focusing on Build Tools and Bolt, two of their main products. And then Jim Keeney, he is the CEO and founder of DAPT. As for myself, I am Jennifer Derchuk. I'm the marketing manager here at Out of the Box Technology. And just a few housekeeping items before we dive in. This session is being recorded, so don't give yourself carpal tunnel trying to take all the notes. You will get a link to this recording so you can revisit any of the information. You can share it with your colleagues and really dive in together. So we hope that you kind of can stay focused and keep up with us. And like I said, you'll get that as a resource later today. We also will be taking your questions. So as we go through the presentation, if you're hoping to learn a little bit more, need some clarification, or have a question about what we're talking about, go ahead and put those into the chat, and we'll be sure to answer them before we kind of transition from topic to topic, and of course, before the end of today's session. Lastly, we will have a couple follow-up resources today in addition to the recording, so be on the lookout for those. And with that, I think that's it from my housekeeping items here. So with that, I'm going to hand things over to Lisa McCarthy to get us started with our agenda and then dive into today's content. So Lisa?
Great, thank you, Jennifer. As she said, I'm Lisa and I'm with Out of the Box Technology. If you're not familiar with Out of the Box Technology, we are anything and everything QuickBooks. Our entire firm is focused on supporting integrations and the use of the software, from architecture to cleanup projects to monthly accounting services and everything in between, and migrations to different platforms, between QuickBooks desktop and online back to desktop, or outside accounting softwares into QuickBooks. So everything we do is centered around QuickBooks. And why QuickBooks? QuickBooks has about 95% market share, and so everybody's using it. And there's just a lot of need for finding integrated applications and solutions for this software. So that's what our firm is 100% devoted to. And that's construction is one of my specialties and why I'm here today. So today we're going to talk about exactly what is job costing and why is it so important. We're going to go through the tools that are available in QuickBooks that help us with job costing, to include estimating job costing of labor that's internal, that's done with a paycheck, and reporting. With all of that, we're going to address what can I not do in QuickBooks. We're also going to talk about the different versions of QuickBooks. What can I do in desktop? What can I do in online? What can I not do in either? And then we're going to present to you a solution specifically for builders that are looking for job costing and how we solve for that. Jennifer, if you can move to the next slide. So job costing is important for large projects. If you're the type of contractor that is in and out of a job on the same day, and you might do 2 or 3 jobs a day, job costing might not be that important. But when you have a long-term contract where thousands of dollars are on the line, and the project spans multiple months, sometimes multiple years, job costing is the lifeblood of your business. And if you don't do it now, you really need to, because you could have 1 or 2 projects that go awry and you could be out of business. So job costing is an accounting function that is necessary for any large project. So what is it? It really is just a systemized way of measuring all of your costs and your revenue in a way that can be measured against actual. So you start with a budget and you measure it against actual. That's job costing. You record everything related to a job from a financial perspective, from labor to materials to payroll. Anything that it takes you from a financial perspective to get the job completed, point A to point Z, along with the revenue attached. And that produces the profit for an individual project. So without this information, you're basically flying in the dark. Jennifer, if you can move to the next one. So again, why is it so important? It is your budget. If you need to know how much money you're going to need to finance this project, you need to have a job budget. So cash flow forecasting, asking for advances up front of a very costly construction project is imperative to your survival. You don't want to be financing your customers' projects. You want to get money up front, and you're going to need to know how much money to ask for ahead of time, not after the fact. It also allows you to measure how much did I think I was going to spend on this project and how much did I think I was going to profit on a particular project versus what actually transpired. When you do that, it will help you do the bid for the next similar project and do better. So you'll find areas that you were efficient and areas that you weren't efficient in by doing job costing. Next slide. So the next thing we're going to talk about are the different tools you have in QuickBooks to help you with this financial project of managing job costs and estimating. So the first tool we're going to get into is around the estimate. Jennifer, if you can move forward.
Yeah, before we dive into that, we do have a quick poll question for the audience.
The poll, sorry about that. Okay.
No worries, no worries. So if you could just type in the chat what it is that you're using, QuickBooks Desktop, QuickBooks Online, or maybe you're in another accounting software currently using that chat. And it looks like we've got a good mix, Lisa, between desktop and QBO. So it's looking about maybe 60-40 with the heavy side on desktop.
Okay, that's pretty much what I expected. So let's move to job estimating tools. So I'm going to show you screenshots of both what you have available to you in QuickBooks Online and what you have available to you in desktop. And then we're going to talk about what's missing. So Jennifer, let's start with QuickBooks Online. So in QuickBooks Online, you basically have a tool called an estimate where you can enter in by phase of construction, quantity times rate equals amount. We all know that when you're coming up with an estimate, you're not going to do your calculations inside of QuickBooks Online or desktop. You're likely to use some sort of front-end estimating software or Excel that has fancy formulas and all kinds of crazy calculations to help you figure out what it's going to take to get the project done. Once you have that information, you need to get that into your accounting software so that we can start to measure prediction versus actual. The problem with QBO, if you're looking at the screen, you've got quantity times rate equals amount. That amount is your sales amount. Nowhere on this screen is there a place to even input your expected costs. So if you can't input it into the system, it's really hard to measure it. So unless you move to QuickBooks Online Advanced, they did just recently add the ability to create a project and create an estimate inside of the project, and they have added the column for cost. But that is not available in most versions of QuickBooks Online. And we're going to talk more about projects and how that works in QuickBooks Online. But in general, the basic versions of QuickBooks Online don't even allow for the entry of cost data. Let's move to the next desktop. All right, so in QuickBooks Desktop, this is a screenshot of the estimate form. And that first column that says estimate is your estimated costs. At that point, by phase of construction, you can put a markup amount line by line, or you can just put a grand total at the bottom for your markup. So if you look at the totals in the very bottom, you'll see the job total was 198,000 in costs. I have a markup of 45,000, taking me to 243,000. So you need that level of detail in QuickBooks or in whatever system you're trying to measure your actuals against, so that you can know if you're on budget or not on budget in terms of costs. Okay, let's move to the next. So what are we missing in QuickBooks? We talked about what we can do in online. We talked about what we can do in desktop. But there's other problems that aren't being solved by that entry of the estimate into QuickBooks. The problem that I see happening all the time is the budget gets continually changed on the fly. The project manager goes out in the field, they're talking to the homeowner says, well, I really don't want this counter over here. I'd rather put it on this wall over here. And suddenly a change order is born. The person on the job may even throw out a number to the homeowner and say, well, that's going to be an extra $1,500 to move the electrical from this wall to that wall. And that information never makes it back to accounting. Or if they do, it's way after the fact. So you have this constant chasing that the accounting team is trying to do to follow all the changes that are happening on a daily basis in the field. And accounting is always the last to know. So it's even when they do find out that a change was made, it is a manual process if you're just using QuickBooks to go in and change that estimate to reflect the additional change orders. Another problem is even with the most advanced reporting that QuickBooks has to offer, visibility to the original budget on reports is not available. So as you continue to change the estimate, it just changes the total estimate, and it doesn't, there's not an individual column for what was the original budget. And when the homeowner's project suddenly goes from 100,000 to 150,000, and they're trying to blame you as the builder, if you can't show them, well, look, your original contract was 100,000, but you had $50,000 of change orders. If it's not easily accessible on a quick report, it's harder to explain to the end customer. So those are some of the things we're missing on the estimating side. There's also payroll. That is a huge challenge for job costing. If you have internal payroll, so people that are getting W-2s, you're paying them via payroll. You're not getting a bill like you do from a vendor or a material supplier that you can easily attach to a job. When it's payroll, what you have to do is measure time spent on individual projects. So Jennifer, if you can move to the next slide. The way we do that is QuickBooks Time. Why QuickBooks Time? QuickBooks Time is fully integrated. It used to be called T-Sheets, now it's called QuickBooks Time. It's fully integrated with both desktop and online versions of the software. So as your people are out in the field, they can use a mobile phone and clock in and clock out easily and send that data immediately to QuickBooks. It's important that it's integrated, because clocking in and clocking out isn't enough. You have to be able to grab the jobs, and the jobs live and breathe in QuickBooks. So if you're not attached to QuickBooks, you won't be able to clock in and clock out and attach it to the job. So using an outside time capture system that's not QuickBooks Time, the first thing you need to find out is, does it integrate with QuickBooks? If it doesn't, it's not really going to help you with job costing. Let's move to the next slide. So if you gather time, let's assume you're using QuickBooks Time and you're using QuickBooks Online, You can view this and translate it into dollars if you create a project and then you go into the project view. So this screenshot is a project that was created that's attached to a job inside a QBO, and timesheet data was integrated. And you can do one of two things with it. You can estimate an hourly cost by putting in like a default rate for each person, or you can turn it into payroll. If you turn it into payroll using QuickBooks Online Payroll, it will be visible on a profit and loss by job report. If you want to use an outside payroll service though, you won't be able to see any of that time data transferred into dollars on a profit and loss by job report. So the projects tool is helpful, but you can only look at them one at a time. So if you want your project managers to be able to see how they're doing on a project, you'd have to give them access to your QBO file. And I don't know that a lot of business owners necessarily want to do that. They usually prefer to create some sort of report and send it out so that the accounting data is a little bit more protected. So I'm not convinced that this project tool is going to really benefit a busy contractor in the way that they're looking to quickly look at many projects at a time. You'd have to individually open up each one inside of QBO and look at this screen. Next slide. In desktop, oh, one more thing, you don't have to go backwards, but on the QBO side, if you are using QBO for payroll, the only thing that gets job costed around payroll is the actual dollars that you're paying them, so the wages plus the payroll taxes. No benefits, no burden rate, none of that can be added into the job costs. So you've got that missing piece. When we go to desktop, we can add burden rates, we can add accruals, and we can job cost them. So it's a little more sophisticated from as to what you can add in to the job costs. All right, next slide. With desktop, you can also do certified payrolls. These are complicated reports that if you're doing work for a municipality, you're usually required to prove that you are paying a prevailing wage. And that's what a certified payroll report will do, is it breaks out for a particular job, all the people that worked on the job day by day on a weekly payroll, and how does their wage break out, adding in all the benefits to get to that prevailing wage. And this is something that you can do with Enterprise today. But what's missing? So we talked about that there's really some very big limitations on the reporting that's available in QuickBooks Online. The other thing I haven't talked about yet is payroll in both QuickBooks Online and desktop, if you're using the Intuit payroll options, is not exposed through their API. So if you're trying to use an external data warehouse or reporting engine to marry data from multiple sources, that data is locked inside of QB, desktop or online, and you cannot get to it because it's not exposed through their API. If you're using an outside payroll service, forget trying to get job costing on the payroll altogether, because the payroll service doesn't know what jobs the dollars should be attached to. It just knows the total cost of the labor, but not at a job level. So you lose that information. Also, if you're trying to use QuickBooks reporting for payroll, it's often difficult to manage the job costing around incentives or per diem or piece rate or work comp, things that are more complicated that sometimes you need an external third-party payroll service to handle because it's just too complicated. That also becomes a problem if you're looking to job cost the labor. Next slide. So lastly, we're going to talk about reporting. Jennifer, if you can move to the next one. So in QuickBooks Online, job cost reports, there's a profit and loss by job, and it's very similar to what it looks like in desktop. You can track materials, subcontractor costs, but the labor will only show up if you're using QuickBooks Online Payroll. If you don't use QuickBooks Online Payroll, there's no way to get the dollars in there. If you do use QuickBooks Online Payroll, again, it will only be the hourly wages or salary wages and the taxes. There's no place to add in a burden rate, which is really common in the construction space. Let's move to the desktop. So in QuickBooks Desktop, we have some more options for reporting. We can get job costed labor, which can include labor cost, benefits, and burden rate. We can even do a little workaround, I call it mock payroll, to be able to deal with having an outside payroll service, but it is kind of a manual process. Let's go to the next slide. With desktop though, we do have some great reporting that can take, because we can put in our estimated costs at a phase of construction level. We do have some great reports that give us estimate versus actual with a difference. Same on the revenue side. So this report is really awesome, and will tell you why you're profitable or not profitable if you're going way over budget on a particular line item. Let's move to the next. If you're on Enterprise, you get this extra report called a job work in process summary. We call it a WIP report. This report for any contractor that's on percentage of completion, revenue recognition, this report is so handy and is what we all live on to adjust the financials each month to recognize the right amount of revenue. The way we used to do this all by hand before they added this report. It's a great report. Basically what it's saying is, I estimated that the cost on this project, just the one that's circled, the bathroom addition, I estimated this project was going to cost me $121,000. Right now, so far, my actual cost into this project is $116,000. Mathematically, that tells me I'm 95% complete with the project. That doesn't mean I'm 95% physically complete, like what I've constructed with my hammer. It just means from a financial perspective, I've consumed 95% of the budget. Accounting is, principles of GAAP is matching the timing of your revenue recognition to the timing of your costs. So if I've incurred 95% of my costs already, I should be recognizing 95% of my revenue. That's the big challenge that people that are doing percent of completion revenue recognition are always faced with, is getting their arms around that number. So that earned revenue column is not a number you're going to see in QuickBooks when clicking on transactions and trying to look at invoices. What you've sent out to collect from your customer, which is usually in advance of spending the money, that's what you see in the actual revenue column. But that's not really the correct amount of revenue that you should be recognizing on your books. If you take 95% of your budgeted revenue, which is $164,000, the answer is I should be recognizing $156,000. That's my earned revenue. That last column is basically your over under billing adjustment that an accountant would have to do at the end of each month. So it might be a little complicated for this group, but I'm just saying this is from a hardcore accounting need to know, gotta have this information so you can fix your books. This report is really, really important. And it's only available in Enterprise. So even if I have all the great reports in Enterprise, but I want to move to QBO, I'm kind of between a rock and a hard place. What am I going to do? I also have to remember that the budgets might keep getting updated. And what if I don't manually go back and fix that in my QuickBooks estimate? Now my percentage of completion is wrong. And all my accounting adjustments are wrong because accounting didn't know about a change order. So that's a problem. And then again, none of these reports show what the original budget was. It just shows what the cumulative total, including change orders, is. So that visibility isn't there. So those are some of the challenges that we have. Next slide. In addition to all those challenges, we're also missing all of the other really great things that a front end solution would provide. Managing the whole sign off of the estimate and the proposal and the change orders, you know, doing it electronically, being able to sign, you know, something in the field on a mobile device. Also scheduling, if one phase of construction gets delayed, it pushes everything else behind it. That's not something you're going to be able to manage in QuickBooks. Obviously need to track the time for each job, managing all those change orders. Document management is huge in the construction space. There's drawings, there's pictures, all of that has to be shared with your vendors and your customers. You have to be able to communicate with them in the field. You have to be able to dispatch people if there's a service call that needs to be done. So all of that is stuff you're never going to do in QuickBooks, and you need to be looking for a third-party software that can attach itself to QuickBooks and play nicely with your accounting to achieve all this great stuff. Next slide. So how can I do better than just QuickBooks? Jennifer, if you can move. We're going to talk now about what we've come up with for the Builder's Job Costing Toolkit, where we're going to put together a multifaceted solution that will allow you to standardize your processes, create budgets, manage change orders, and provide in-platform communication, all revolving around your accounting, payroll, and time tracking needs. Next slide. All right, so I'm going to, at this point, turn this over to the next presenter, which is Bob, to talk about how the job costing toolkit and the construction side can be solved, all those cool things we just talked about, how they can be solved with a third-party app.
Thanks, Lisa. Yeah, so the screen that we're looking at right here is looking at a budget, and technology in general is something that we're talking about. So being able to pull this information together to be able to make decisions on these critical KPIs is important to your business. So if we can gather the information from the payroll side of things, and we can collect what's important to the business, we can really manage it because we can measure it. So in this screen here, this is showing us an initial budget that we would start with on a project. It's also showing us, after we start with that budget, there might be changes like Lisa referred to. So there might be change orders that we have to keep track of. And then there are other various fields that are important as well that we'll get into when we actually look at the product. And in general, the product is called Build Tools, and that is the supporting system underneath of the job costing toolkit that will allow you to keep track of your cost in real time so that you can manage it, because it is being measured as we go through the process. And if we go to the next slide, so here's an example of job cost, the flow of information on this screen here. So what we're looking at is, not only is Build Tools going to allow you to keep track of a budget, incorporate your change orders and your selections, and stay on top of your cost all the way through the process, but it's also going to allow you to have instant communication on the job with all constituents throughout the process. So if I have to send an email out for bid, or I have to communicate with a supplier or a customer, I can actually do that within the system, and it will keep track of all of the communication. This helps me not only keep track of the budget information, but all of the communication throughout the process. And so in this particular instance, what we're looking at right here is, this is the aspect of the budget where we have pulled together the time allocations that have been converted over into our payroll cost that's specifically integrated back out into the budget. So in a nutshell, what this is doing here is, this is saying that I can keep track of my time. I can have a good payroll solution in place that converts that time into dollars and relates it back to the jobs in which I'm tracking on here. And it gives me one place to look at all of my costs that I've accumulated. And it's also the place where I have my beginning estimate. So now what I can do is when changes happen in real time through change orders that also affect the budget, I'm now up to the minute on what my cost is for everything that I'm tracking across the board, all in one place. And there's various ways of being able to look at it. And so I want to go ahead and bring on the next speaker, introduce Jim, to talk a little bit about how DAPT fits into this process.
Good afternoon. So as you can tell, it's really important for the simplicity of all this that the data flows smoothly between all of the various different systems involved. And those systems are accounting, time tracking, and payroll. Accounting is where you're setting up your jobs and your projects and the type of work that you do. Payroll, time tracking, is where your employees are going out there and they're recording, I worked 8 hours on this particular job doing this type of work. And payroll, of course, is where those hours get converted into dollars. And then most importantly, those dollars need to be tied back into the original job and the type of work that was defined. That does that. That's what we do. We orchestrate that data flow between all three of those pillars to make sure that this all happens without anybody having to do hand entering, without spreadsheets being shared back and forth. And that's the key. In addition to just making sure that the data flows all the way through, what we have discovered is many of you are running, have different ways of incentivizing your employees, or you have complex overtime rules, or you have different labor laws that you have to follow. DAPT also implements that intelligence so that as the data flows from platform to platform, that logic is built in so that you end up with accurate, up-to-date information. If we can go on to the next slide. And that returns us back to Bob. And just know that DAPT is in the background, making sure that all that data flows smoothly, and you don't have to have 5 people re-entering the information over and over again. Thank you. Back to you, Bob.
Thanks, Jim. That's a great point. And so as we think about that budget screen that we looked at earlier, and now we think about what Jim is saying on how we're going to be able to collect that payroll information and pull it right into the job budget, now we need to have a couple of different ways of looking at this information. And so this report that you see on the screen is actually an output report that comes out of Build Tools, since that what we're describing here is having everything flow into Build Tools, being the central repository of information. This report would come directly out of it. And so this would incorporate our job estimate. It would incorporate any of the costs that have been added through change orders, giving us a total cost. It would keep track of invoices, because whether those invoices were entered into a product like Build Tools because it's happening through project management approval, or those invoices are entered into QuickBooks from a bookkeeping standpoint, doesn't matter, because Build Tools has a two-way bidirectional sync with QuickBooks, so that every time an invoice is entered, you're going to be able to see the actual cost. So you'll be able to see your total estimated cost compared to your actual cost. You can see the difference. You can also see the revenue and how change orders affect your total revenue, as well as other information such as invoices to the customer, client invoices paid, which also comes out of Build Tools, and unbilled revenue, as well as actual cost versus actual revenue. So I'm pointing these columns out because these were critical pieces of information that Lisa has pointed out that you have available to you today in QuickBooks Desktop. There's some limitation in getting this information out of QuickBooks Online. And so what this is telling us here is that if we're able to pull together QuickBooks Online, the use of Build Tools with the DAPT services and a payroll connector, you're going to be able to get the types of reports that are available that Lisa was describing in QuickBooks Desktop to come out of Build Tools in real time, because that is a system that not only we are using on the finance side of the business, but we're also using it live in the field when customers ask for things, when changes come up, when budgets are adjusted. We have it all in real time. And if we go to the next slide, this is another example of a report where Lisa was describing the percentage of completion accounting calculations that you can get and the benefit of that report. And many of you are relying on that today because it's very time consuming to come up with your percentage of complete at any given point in time and then make the appropriate adjustments to what you should be showing as revenue, offsetting the rest of the money in held liability. That's accounting transactions. This report will show you exactly where you are at any moment in time, and it will do it for you automatically out of Bill Tools. So with that being said, let's take a quick overview of the actual product, and we'll actually go ahead and show you some of the features here. So you should be looking at my screen right now. Inside of Bill Tools, it's a web-based application. And inside of Bill Tools, what you'll be able to see is you can start with an overview on your dashboard. You can make selections to go forward and create and design the type of project that you're going to get into. What you can also do is you can create a proposal on the front end. And so I'll just show you a quick example of being able to put together a quick proposal. The proposal will allow you to come up with line items that can either be summarized or equate to line items in a budget. And this exact proposal that comes up with the cost of this job can then be sent over to your potential homeowner. So whether this is a fixed price job, which is pretty common for remodelers, or it is a fixed price custom home or a cost plus or some other type of fee calculation, that can happen behind the scenes. The proposal can be created. And then when we want to preview that proposal, we may do a combination of some of those things. So we may not want the person that we're sending the proposal to or the company to see all of the information at all times. So when I create this proposal, and that is one of the items that Lisa had in the presentation that really is kind of left out of the current process, when we create these proposals, you have the capability of really customizing what you would like the end user to see. So for example, I just drew a quick picture of a house that we're creating a proposal for. And what that did is that gave me a basic template showing things like address information. And just as like a quick example, if I say that I want to go in here and change the title page, I might say take away the address. And then when I apply the changes, the address goes away. Maybe I want to put the address back. So that's just a quick example so that I can show you how we can customize things here. And I can get into my summary here, which shows the amounts. If I don't want to show the fees, I can take it away. If I want to show tax, I can apply it. And so either way, I have full control of customizing my proposals because we all have different proposals for different customers and they all have slight differences. When I'm ready to send, I just click the button and it sends it to my client. And for right now, I'll just show you a quick example of what this proposal would look like in a PDF format. This would go over to your client. And so all of this, again, is all customizable. It will meet the needs of whatever you need to do from a proposal standpoint. And then once the client receives it, they can accept the proposal and sign off of it in an email. When they do that, that will actually build this budget. So based on how we either grouped our line items or separated them out, it will take that proposal and pull them into the budget. So I can start my budget with the proposal process, or I can just come straight into the budget and put in a simple budget line by line, just editing the line and typing in the dollar amounts. So a real simple way of putting information into the budget. And like we looked at earlier, with DAP collecting the time tracking information and pulling together all of the payroll costs, that information automatically syncs itself into the customer record on QuickBooks and bi-directionally will come into Bill Tools here so that you can show cost line items at the payroll level for all of those types of costs that we're talking about. So now I have all my costs in one place. Like I said in the beginning, you can go forward and you can make your selections through Bill Tools. You can have a predefined library of options that you can pick from, or you can make selections on the fly. You can even, if you want to find pictures to go along with your selections, you can even go through and you can search the web for those pictures and you can have those entered in to the process so that the customer can sign off on those selections with the pictures added. If there are changes throughout the process, I can go forward and I can add my change orders, and change orders might be an example of halfway through this project, a buyer wants to make a different selection on a fireplace, knock down a wall, put in an outdoor kitchen. We can go through and we can document those things, which will go directly into the buyer's inbox that they have to sign off on. And that too will flow over and affect and update the budget. And then, like Lisa pointed out, there's going to be documents and photos and different things that you need to keep track of on this job. When you take those photos, you can just simply take them with your mobile device and tag them directly to the job so that you have photos throughout the life of the project. You can even connect a 360 camera during construction, which would help you put information into the system, and it would allow you to play the video of the 360 image, move things around, and see exactly what's happening behind the scenes underneath of the drywall before the drywall goes up or for other purposes. This application will play it exactly how a 360 photo will work. It will allow you to go ahead and put in descriptions and comments and keep track of those photos throughout the process as well. All those documents and everything that you have stored can be used for project tracking and details. It can be used during the bidding process. And then you may want to organize some of those things into a place where you want people to be able to see them throughout the process. And so what a lot of our customers do to communicate during the process is they actually put together what's called a project poster. So all of my documents that are construction specific are actually now living at this project behind the scenes, and those that I want to make available, I've tagged as available. So if you have a cell phone out right now, something with a camera on it, and you'd like to go ahead and take a picture of this QR code right here, go ahead and do that and then click the link. What that's going to do is that's going to take you to a place where we have the documents that are important for this project that we would like everybody who's involved to be able to see. And so a common use of this application during the process is I may want to take my permits or my latest plan drawings for what I'm trying to accomplish, my cabinet layout for a custom house, whatever those things are that are important, and I have them in that special place that is being saved. And then I take a copy of this and I print it out and I actually tape it to the wall or I put it to a stud at the construction job site. And that way anybody on site can just click the QR code and gain access to the latest information that they need and look at it in real time and pull it up. So that's called Project Poster, real easy way of being able to communicate throughout the process. And then like we said, as we go forward, there is a schedule that we're going to keep track of. The schedule is a true critical path schedule. The schedule will allow us to be able to move the critical path around. It will allow us to create the capability and capacity of the trade contractors that we're using, the resources that we're using on a job, and it will allow us to have tools that will show us conflicts when we've overlaid a resource. So if our electrician can only work on one house at a time and we schedule that electrician for two, we'll get a notification that we've overrode the capacity of that electrician. We can easily move these things around graphically, and it will adjust and move around the rest of the schedule as needed. And so the schedule is a true critical path schedule with live access in the field or the back office to help us through this entire process. We can create purchase orders to tell everyone who's involved exactly what they need to do. And then if we have to send a bill to our homeowner, we can go into the financial aspect of the system and we can create that bill so that it will pull into account, it will look through the budget, and it will pull into account everything that needs to be billed at that point in time in the process, and it will automatically send the bill out for the percentage that we are complete based on the invoices that were entered in. So this can really eliminate a lot of manual work during the billing process. Bringing us back to the budget, always knowing exactly how much this project is costing us at any moment in time, and keeping track of all communication during the project. And then when it's done, there's a service aspect allowing us to go forward and keep track of warranty work so that we can properly service our homeowners throughout the process. So if we can, Jennifer, to go back over to the slides, I think it'd be a good time to start to kind of wrap up and pull everything together here.
Absolutely, Bob. Thank you so much for that kind of walkthrough of build tools and all of the aspects that Lisa touched on as far as what are currently missing, how we can solve for that. So I really appreciate that.
All right.
All right.
So you want me to wrap up?
Yeah, go ahead and wrap up, Lisa.
Okay. So what we put together with the Builder's Job Costing Toolkit is, again, as Bob said, real-time job costing. So taking the various technologies, QuickBooks Time, outside payroll service, QuickBooks Online, and a front-end industry-specific solution, wrapping that all together and providing you with a way to easily get actual costs married to estimated costs and the reporting that you need to run your business from a financial perspective. We also are hoping to get you time back in your day, because so much of what we try to accomplish in QuickBooks Online or QuickBooks Desktop and trying to manage all the reporting back there is time consuming, because there's often double entry or chasing of people that are out in the field to get the information that you need. So at the end of the day, we're trying to create a solution, or we have created a solution that allow for better communication, and quite frankly, the need for less communication, because it's automated between the bookkeeping and the project management teams. And lastly, we want to give users options for payroll. QuickBooks Online Payroll and QuickBooks Desktop Payroll are great solutions and do an awesome job for many, many, many companies. But when you get into really hardcore job costing, there are limitations. And so people tend to start to look for outside payroll services. And when they do that, they want to still use QuickBooks and they still want the reporting, but now everything's, kind of disjoined and everything reverts back to a manual process to try to achieve that through fancy spreadsheet calculations and things like that. So we're trying to create flexibility for the QuickBooks user to choose the technologies that make sense for them, but bundle it all together and ultimately give you the reporting that you need. Next slide. Okay, so the value is, it's future proof. Everything we're hanging our hat on is cloud-based. You'll know, I'm sure everyone on this call knows, Intuit's real drive for the future is to move everybody off of QuickBooks Desktop and onto QuickBooks Online. Over half their user base is still on QuickBooks Desktop. That's not going to happen overnight, but we're trying to get ahead of the game. We're trying to create solutions where people can go ahead and move to the cloud, make that leap now, but not lose out on some of the features and functionalities that were available in desktop. So while I'm a hardcore desktop user, I love desktop. I've been using it since it was born on the market since 1992. That's when I started with it. It was DOS 1.0. So I'm pretty attached to that software. But I can see the future is everything's in the cloud. Being in the cloud allows, especially since COVID happened, that was kind of a wake-up call for everybody, that everybody's got to be able to work remote. And if you don't solve for that soon, you're going to be left behind. So you're either going to have to host your QuickBooks Desktop file to allow for the remote workers, or you're going to have to get what you need out of QuickBooks Online with these additional apps. And that's really the direction that Intuit's going, is they're not trying to solve everything for everybody. Back in the days of QuickBooks Desktop, they had the industry-specific versions that they would come out with. QuickBooks for contractors, QuickBooks for retail, QuickBooks for nonprofit, QuickBooks for professional services, QuickBooks for accountants. They're not moving in that direction in the cloud-based world. They're saying, we're building this really awesome, hardcore, accounting-oriented piece of software that all these third-party developers can connect to, and we'll be able to expand our reach to even more industries and even more solutions by making it super easy to integrate with QuickBooks Online. And that's what they're doing. Instead of trying to solve every problem for every industry, they're saying, we're going to give you a top-notch accounting software that's easy to integrate with, so that developers can come up with these amazing add-ons to solve things that nobody ever even dreamed of a year ago. So it also gives you that anytime, anywhere, security, access, mobility, all of the above. Next slide. All right, so we've got some time for Q&A. Jennifer, I know you're kind of manning the chat, so if you have encountered any that you want to throw out there, we can see between the three of us if we can answer it.
Yeah, absolutely. We do have a couple of questions, and if you hadn't had a chance yet to chat your question over to us, now is the time. So team, our first question is, can job costing and that WIP report that was mentioned be reported within date parameters, or is it always up through the current date?
That is an awesome question. And the answer is, at this very second, it's as of the current date. But I just worked with the developers last week and asked that exact same question and said, can we add a cutoff date? And they said, yep, we can do that, no problem. So at this, like today, I'm going to say it's as of today, but as of probably next week or very soon, it will be as of a cutoff date. So it was just something that nobody really thought of until we started using it. And then we're like, we need a cutoff date. So yes, it's coming. Absolutely. I promise it's coming very soon. Great question.
The next question is job costing available on QuickBooks Online or only through the use of build tools?
So define job costing. I mean, job costing is attaching costs and revenue to a particular project. Can you do that in QBO? Yes, you can. If you're using QuickBooks Online Payroll, you can attach the payroll cost to a project. You can attach vendor bills to a project. You can create an estimate with a budget if you're on QuickBooks Online Advanced to a project. But the reporting is pretty limited. So that's the problem. You can do it, but the reports available to actually see the results are not there yet. So what we've built today, the job cost reports will live in build tools that you're looking for.
All right, thank you. Our next question is kind of multifaceted, but what is the ideal company that this technology is made for? How many employees and jobs would be practical to use QBO? And then what is the payroll option?
Okay, so I'll start from the last question because I can remember that one better. So the payroll options right now, you can use things like ADP, Paychecks, Gusto. If you have, those are some of the bigger, more popular ones that integration has already been built. And I'll let Jim speak more on that. I believe he can also, their system can also do other payroll services that might just require like an export and an import rather than a direct sync. Did I describe that right, Jim?
Yeah, that's correct. So DAPT itself is agnostic when it comes to the time tracking and the payroll processing. So we can use pretty much any payroll provider and any time tracking platform. How tight the integration is changes from platform to platform. So so we can host it all. Just talk to us and we'll figure out. We'll let you know what level of integration we've built out for that.
And then Jennifer, you're gonna have to refresh me in the other two because I already forgot them.
No worries. So what is the ideal company for this technology? Maybe smaller home builders, or if you can clarify the ideal company. And then how many employees or jobs are practical to use it?
I'm gonna let Bob answer both of those questions because your limitation isn't really QBO. You're doing all the heavy lifting in that front end application. So Bob, you want to address that?
Sure. Yeah. So back to the evolution of Build Tools. Build Tools was created by a custom home builder remodeler company. There was one company with two arms. One was for custom home building. One was for remodeling. Every aspect of Build Tools was created by builders and the way builders and remodelers think. And so Build Tools by itself ideally is inside and used within companies ranging from companies that are doing, say, $1 million or $2 million in sales, all the way up to $50 million in sales. So we have some remodeler customers that are doing 3 to 5 large jobs a year, and I have others that are doing hundreds of small jobs per year. I think that our ideal customer profile was drastically expanded when we take into account the integration with DAP, the out-of-the-box services, and the bi-directional syncing with QuickBooks, because it now takes into account, as Lisa pointed out, time tracking and the ability to turn time back into money. So I would say that with the job costing toolkit that we are presenting to you today, I would say that you could start off at a smaller level, and you could grow to a point that I really don't have limitations on right now. We have, like I said, companies that are doing hundreds of remodel projects, and when we really take into account the time tracking and the payroll, we can really service very large, sophisticated companies, and we can start you off prior to you getting to that level.
Thanks, Bob. Kind of as a follow-up, the audience member asked, what about a home builder who uses completed contract method of revenue recognition?
Yeah, that's a great question. I can take this one, Lisa. So that we kind of look inside of bill tools from a billing perspective of open book versus closed book, and completed contract versus percentage of completion on the accounting side of things. And we have customers that do all of the above, home builders that do all of the above, and home builders that will even have some jobs that are completed contract, and then their next job will be percentage of completion. I have a customer right now building a hospital on a percentage of completion accounting basis, and they are doing custom homes on a completed contract basis. And the way that the fee structures and the billing works are even different between those two. And so on each job, not only can you do completed contract versus percentage of completion, but you can also change it from open book, closed book, and adjust the fee structure at the cost code, the total project, or some combination of the two. So really, it's open to all of the above would be the answer to the question.
Excellent. Then we have one more question, and then we'll wrap us up as we're nearing the end of the hour here. What about bill pay and also character recognition of incoming bills?
So I think I can answer the bill pay. So the bill pay, paying your bills is done in QuickBooks. You can enter your bill in Bill Tools and it will appear as a bill to pay, but your physical payment of the bill would get initiated out of QuickBooks to the vendor. Character recognition, I can't answer that one.
That's where I come in.
Okay.
So I think what you're asking is the ability to utilize ML tools, AI tools, to recognize information on a bill and instantaneously turn it into the data that then feeds into the system and connects up to your QuickBooks accounts. And the answer to the question is yes, we have a system that we utilize that does that for you. So it's basically take a picture of a bill and instantly have it turn into a set of dollars that get passed back into the accounting system.
Great. Well,
So
we didn't stump any of you.
And actually, if you don't mind, along those lines, the other thing that we're solving for is if your employees are called on to do ad hoc purchases in the field, you can use the same scanning technology to recognize their receipts from like Home Depot or someplace like that.
Excellent. So those are all the questions that we have. I'm gonna scoot to our final slide, which just has our contact information, but I'll give Bob, Jim, and Lisa each a chance to just kind of have any closing comments, last words for the audience. And I'll leave that, like I said, that contact up there. if anyone wants to reach out for more questions or kind of get started, do you want a demo, kind of a test drive of the product?
Great, I can kind of start us off, Jennifer. So appreciate everybody's time today. Thinking about technology is a very important decision for your business. You want to really look at your business needs and look at what we were presenting in this seminar today. I think that this is very appealing to a lot of businesses out there. We spent over a year and a half putting together this solution to be able to solve a lot of problems. Very excited to be working with Out of the Box and DAFT to be able to bring these solutions to you. Happy to provide you with a test drive of Build Tools, so feel free to email the information on the screen, check us out, and ask for a test drive if you'd like. Happy to give you a personalized demonstration of the product, and really appreciate everybody's time today.
And I'll pick up from there. I think it's become obvious that the way of the future is you go out and you pick the tools that best serve you online. So whether it be time tracking or accounting or payroll processing, you're going to want to pick the ones that do the job best for you. And so where DAP steps in then is, now that you've got all these tools and they're best of breed, how do you connect them? How do you flow that information around so that everything is kept in sync and you get the value out of those tools that you've spent so much time picking and choosing? And this collection of tools is an excellent collection of tools with best of breed in all three categories, providing you with a complete solution that allows you to very easily understand what's going on in your business.
Excellent. Well, thank you for joining our whole audience. Thank you very much. We had a great group today. And to Bob, Lisa, and Jim, thank you for again sharing your expertise. I'm so glad our three companies came together to develop this toolkit. It really is an excellent solution. So we appreciate that very much. Again, this recording will be sent out to the entire audience later this afternoon. And we're here if you have any questions. So I wish you all a wonderful rest of your day, and we'll talk to you soon.